Hi everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology for April 24th through 30th, 2023. So we made it. We made it past last week's eclipse, and we're still in eclipse energy. In fact, you could argue that the eclipse season is not just the time between the eclipses, which we are in, but it actually kind of brings us to the days and even the weeks before the eclipse. But nevertheless, the solar eclipse that we had on April 20th, it opened a new chapter. It is an eclipse, especially a solar eclipse, is a punctuation of time and space. And this brings us into a new chapter, and one that will be, over the next 6 months, lived through the energies of the sign, the zodiac that we just had this eclipse in, which is Aries. So the next 6 months, we're really focusing on new beginnings, on taking action, on going after what we want, finding our desires, anchoring in, because Mars is in Cancer, but we also have some pretty strong Pluto energies in this eclipse, and all you have to do is look in the news. Things are starting to happen. This is a time when sort of the star rises or the star falls of people. It's a time when the pivot point in our own life. And the funny thing about eclipses, even though in theory, analytically, logically, it should have already happened, the event, eclipse energy, or the event that is associated with the eclipse energy, can actually occur at a later date. Sometimes it needs a trigger, and we are coming up to the first quarter moon this week. That's one of the things we got to talk about, and how we can kind of have these different ripples of energy, but not to bury the lead, so to speak. It's also Taurus season. That kind of got lost in the mix last week. It's kind of hard to focus on Taurus when you got other big things to talk about. Sorry, Taurus. But yeah, let's talk about Taurus season. Let's also talk about how these eclipses are setting us up for next week's Scorpio lunar eclipse on May 5th. Yes, lots to talk about. If you're watching live, do say hello. It's always nice to see where everybody's watching from. And of course, if you're watching on the replay, YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, always nice to hear from you as well. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Katie Sweetman. I'm an astrologer and psychic medium here in the New York City area. And every week we gather live to talk about the astrology, because the astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. Although when it's eclipse season, it's kind of hard to argue about that 50%. It's just in the sense that the eclipse energy, it's a psychic force that's bigger than us. All we can do is sit with it, let it reveal something to us, sort of, I think with a lot of respect, that there are forces that are bigger than us, and that time is an energy that runs through everything. It runs through us, and this is to really respect that this is a new chapter in our life, especially because this was the first eclipse and a series of eclipses in Aries, and then later Libra, that's going to take us into the spring, well, not spring if you are in the southern hemisphere, March of 2025. But at the same time, we're closing out a chapter. This eclipse that we're going to have in Scorpio on May 5th is our last eclipse in Scorpio for 9 years, thank the Lord. And then we have one more eclipse in Taurus later this year, and that is the end of a cycle that began in November of 2021. So yes, if you're watching live, let me know how you're doing. How are you feeling these eclipses? So far, so good. I don't want to necessarily put any negative spin on eclipses, but like I said, it's a force of energy. It's an event. It's an unfolding series of events. For me, 29 Aries is my 4th house, so I'm just really feeling that need to nest, to spend time alone. It seems like everything is crazy. It does feel like everything is crazy these days. Just continuing on the crazy vein. This is why it's really important that when we have eclipses or these kind of really intense astrological events, it's energy. You are a physical being. That energy has an effect on you. Take care of yourself. Maybe that's a good segue to Taurus season, and I will come back to the eclipses when we talk about this first quarter moon that I alluded to earlier. It's Taurus season. Happy birthday, Taurus. Actually, I love Taurus season, and I'm saying this as a Scorpio. You all are my, you're my polarity. We all have a polarity of signs. So Scorpio is the sign of decay. I know that doesn't sound very fun, but that's its role on the fixed cross, the cross of matter and manifestation. Material world at some point, goes to decay. Scorpio, end of October, Halloween, leaves changing colors, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere. Taurus, however, and of course, I'm sorry, Southern Hemisphere astrology is very Northern Hemisphere biased. We are in the full bloom of spring. It is the rebirth of life. It stands counter to Scorpio's decay of life. So this is a time, and Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac, where we have to really take that powerful Aries energy and bring it in. Anchor it into something, anchor it into our bodies. In astrology, little nerd point, the first element is fire. Fire energy, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. It comes before Earth. That we need that spark of life that helps us to really kind of put it into something. You could think about Aries as the conception of life, and Taurus is the container for that conception of life. And so that pattern really repeats itself at different stages of the zodiac, where we have to sort of take the spark and put it into something. That said, this is a season for us to renew, to come back to life. You can say, well, I thought that was also Aries season. Well, they're in a way, Aries and Taurus are kind of, buddies. They need each other. We need, the material anchor, Taurus, for the fire and that sort of rush of energy, Aries. But Taurus also, it's ruled by Venus. And if you don't know what a ruler is, every zodiac sign has a ruler. It's like saying that Venus is Taurus's boss. What does this tell us? It tells us that Taurus is a sign that is very Venusian, Venus in nature. It needs pleasure, it needs sensuality, it needs slowness, it wants to enjoy things. It is a receptive energy. Taurus is, and I'll put this in air quotes, a feminine sign, not gender, but receptive, yin in nature, as opposed to Libra, which is active, yang energy. Anyway, I'm kind of getting off a tangent point. So we need Taurus. We need Taurus to sort of get us to slow down, to really appreciate our lives, to really take care of our material lives. And I mean that in the best possible way. At the end of the day, we all need different things as human beings. We'll value things as different, differently as human beings, but we need food, we need shelter, we need comfort, we need like a roof over our head, we need money, and it's just the reality of living in a material world. Of course, there can be systems of exchange, but this is a time to really sit with your material life. How is it doing? Does it need that rebirth of energy that we see in Taurus season? Do we need to maybe buy something or not buy something? We can always share and exchange and make beautiful food for the people that we love. We can go outside, we can be in the sunshine. I always think of Taurus energy as just like laying in the green grass, like with the sun on your belly and just enjoying life. Kind of reminds me of my dog a little bit, although my dog's an Aries. But anyway, so Taurus season, take care of your body, take care of your physical life. It is the container for your spirit. It is the containers for your energy. So we have eclipse season. Things can get a little gnarly. We need to make sure that we are getting enough sleep. We are, eating our vegetables, getting our vitamins, getting some sunshine, and taking care of feeling safe and stable and secure. So there's just so much going on in the world right now, but it all comes back to us making sure that we are safe and okay. But so Taurus season, little fun fact about this Taurus season, or about the Taurus seasons that we've been having over the last 4 or 5 years. This is a Taurus season that also has Uranus in Taurus. And this is something that we've been talking about periodically over the past few years. And maybe this sounds a little esoteric, like Uranus and Taurus. Well, every planet, and including the sun, I realize the sun's not a planet, but from the perspective of astrology, the sun's the planet. Every planet spends a certain amount of time in a zodiac sign. The sun spends 30 days. Uranus spends 7 years. I know, it's a long time. Pluto has spent 15 years in Capricorn and has just stepped into Aquarius. It's going to spend 20 years in Aquarius. But yeah, that's to kind of give you a sense of compare and contrast. So I know, big deal. But Uranus is what's called an evolutionary planet. And since May 2018, March 2019, and really since March of 2019, the 2018, May to November 2018 period was a preview. It was trying to tell us that, hey, get ready. Your material life's going to change. Your relationship with money, income, value, stability, security, your relationship with your body, it's going to change. Why? Because Uranus is a planet whose job is to get us to awaken by any means possible. It is very likely, especially if you are a Taurus or have major planets or angles in Taurus, that certain areas of your life or you do not look the same as you did 3, 4, 5 years ago. You say, well, Katie, pandemic and this and that. And I'm like, I know. Our relationship with services and goods and, things that we have. And of course, having the luxury to have certain things. And thankfully, I have that. But, some people don't. And I think this is a time that's been made us very aware of what we have and what we don't have, what we need, what's really important, what's not important. Because Taurus can get right down to like the root of things, meaning the things that we need on a very primal level. And sometimes Taurus is like, you know what, I don't need this. But it takes a long time for Taurus to get to that point. It is a sign that needs stability sometimes above all. And this is where Uranus comes in, because even if you're saying to me, well, Katie, I'm not a Taurus, you have Taurus as a part of your astrology. And maybe we'll save this for next week when we have the eclipse and the Taurus energy getting highlighted and then Uranus getting highlighted. But that area of your life has demanded change and transformation. It may have been your career. It may have been a relationship. This could be my Leos, my Scorpios listening. Maybe it's health, and these are my Sagittariuses listening. And that doesn't have to be a negative thing, but that area of your life has had to grow and evolve. So yes, Taurus is typically about stability, security, keeping things the same. But sometimes we get in a rut, sometimes we get in our own way, and sometimes we are so terrified of change that we hold on to things longer than we should have. And that's where Scorpio comes in, and Scorpio's like, everything has to die. Anyway, just being a little hyperbolic. But anyway, so yeah, Taurus season. What else do we got? We are coming up to next week's lunar eclipse in Scorpio on May 5th. Talk about that more this week, but we are in what's called a portal of energy between the eclipses. So the solar eclipse on April 20th opened a new facet of time. The lunar eclipse on May 5th will close that facet of time. In this sort of in-between and interstitial time, things are rushing in and out of our lives. Our lives can become very, punctuated or marked by major events around the eclipses or certain key moments after the eclipses. Maybe it's not dramatic for you, but it says that this area of your life, which is the Aries area of your life, will see a lot of change. I went through all of this. I did a 2.5-hour webinar last week. It turned out really well. You can watch the introduction. Links in the show notes if you're watching on YouTube. The link is also in my YouTube. But yeah, you can still get the full 2.5-hour webinar on my website, empoweringastrology.com. But anyway, yeah, so that area of your life, the Aries area of your life, is going to see a lot of change and transformation over the next 6 months, because that's what eclipses do. They open up a chapter at a time. But that said, we are in that, kind of really magical, mystical, pay attention to your dreams, look for the subtext, look for the clues, because like I said, people are coming in and out of your lives. And I used this analogy last week, and it's often an analogy that I use when I talk about the eclipses. The curtain has come down on one act of our lives. The curtain is preparing to come up on the next. And if you've ever watched a theatrical performance, sometimes when we come up to that next act, it is a very different scene. That is what eclipses do. So yeah, I got eclipse season, Taurus season. I'm looking at my notes, but yeah, let's talk about the astrology of April 24th through 30th, 2023. So as we start the week, the sun has made what's called a conjunction, same place in the sky, as the north node of the moon. It's really important for us to understand the lunar nodes, and maybe this is the first time you're hearing about the lunar nodes, but they are integral to making an eclipse happen. It is not an actual physical body. It is 2 points in the sky, always opposite. They are mathematical points, and they tell us where does the moon intersect with the ecliptic, as the moon is going around the earth. And that point, it's a very, astronomically speaking, it's pretty mundane, other than the fact that it makes eclipses happen. If a new or full moon or within a certain degree of the lunar nodes, we have an eclipse. Today the sun made a conjunction to the north node. So we're in that zone, and we had an eclipse a few days ago, for example. On a deeper spiritual, esoteric level, the nodes are this powerful axis of energy. It's the axis of fate. It sort of talks about karma and destiny. And I know those are big words, but this is where our lives, again, can be very marked around this period of the eclipses, for example. So we have the lunar nodes. The sun made the conjunction to the lunar node today, April 24th, and we got that another ripple of eclipse energy today, Monday. And then we get to tomorrow, and tomorrow we do have a very quiet sextile. The sextile is a 60-degree angle between the sun and Saturn. So maybe tomorrow we can get a lending hand from somebody, look for mentors, look for people that are really trying to be support for us in sort of a little bit quiet ways. Maybe it's somebody who's older, that's a very typical Saturn energy, or somebody who has a lot of maturity. Hey, I have a dog, everybody. There's somebody in the hall. That's what that means. So, yeah, Sun sextile Saturn. Anyway, so let's go to... This is actually the first time he has barked. I don't know if you remember, he was a puppy. And I had him, and it was here in this apartment, because I used to live someplace up until June of 2021. And I was doing the Leo part of the live, and he was like biting down on a squeaky toy the whole time I was talking about Leo. But anyway, yeah. You can't see him, but his name is Miguel. And he is right now being a very bad boy. Anyway, so... first quarter moon, and I talked about this. Yeah, I'm talking about you. I talked about this when I was, doing my introduction. But the first quarter moon is getting from the April 26th, Wednesday, into the very early hours of Thursday, April 27th. The first quarter moon after a solar eclipse is like a big checkpoint for our eclipse, and sometimes we need to get to that first quarter moon to really get a sense of what's it about. The first quarter moon in the lunar cycle means that the moon is squaring the sun. It is an opening 90-degree angle, for example. For some people, it's a friction point, it's a crisis point, it's a decision point. It's when we start to really see what this eclipse is all about. The first quarter moon is going to be in Cancer, and Cancer is the same sign that Mars is in, and Mars played a big role in the energies of the eclipse. So we had the solar eclipse in Aries, and it was pointing its energy over to Aries, Mars, and Cancer. And so we have these two what are called cardinal signs very present in the astrology, which means that we're really focusing on these primal energies, primal needs, taking action, going after what we want, home and family, really feeling rooted and grounded. But yeah, we need, to see what is coming up around, the 26th, going to the very beginning of the 27th, maybe, fully on the 27th for those of us who are in Australia. But that's going to give us a little bit of a clue to what this eclipse is about. And with Mars and Cancer, this eclipse really touched on these, again, I said primal a few moments ago. What's primal? I mean, we're human beings. We need to feel safe and secure. We need a sense of home and family and grounded. And I realize family is often a complicated word, but if you sort of strip away our own story about family, it's like we need to feel like we are safe and secure. And Mars can be in Cancer a little emotionally testy. It's like when it gets emotional, Cancer, Mars, it touches on these very old emotions, almost, and I say this in the best possible way, a little infantile. It's like, well, that feeling that we get when we're like hungry and tired and nobody's listening to us, we're not getting what we want, and that that was sorry, my dog scared everybody. But that's, when we really feel that Mars and Cancer energy. But Mars and Cancer can also make us feel really motivated and a desire to really, protect the things that are really important. It is Taurus season, so the things are not just emotionally important, but the things that are, physically important as well. Then we get, and speaking of Mars, we get into the 27th, and then Mars in Cancer makes what's called a square to Chiron and Aries. And this might play a little bit in the background. Chiron aspects aren't always overt. They sort of touch upon a deeper psychic and emotional quality. It's speaking to something that we have to heal, we have to work on, but also something that feels very old, especially with the Cancer energy. It might, pick up something like a pain point that actually reaches straight back into childhood or early memories or maybe even past lives. By we get to the weekend, we don't have any major aspects, but I do want to kind of put a little teaser out, is that in addition to the Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse next week, we also have Pluto turning retrograde. So that's, even though it's next week, that's with us this week. Pluto went into Aquarius on March 23rd, and that was the first time that it's been in Aquarius since the 1780s and 90s. I know, long time. March 23rd was like our first real introduction to Pluto in Aquarius, and then we have the retrograde May 1st. The time around the retrograde is our next introduction to the Pluto and Aquarius energy. And then the next one will be when Pluto is about to go back into Capricorn in the days before June 11th. Yes, Pluto is going to go back into Capricorn, where it will spend up until January of next year. Then it's going to go back into Aquarius, and then it's go back into Capricorn. That means Pluto is not going to go fully into Aquarius until November of 2024. Anyway, I digress. But we need to start to really pay attention to what are the themes, emotions, energies, and archetypes that are starting to present themselves around Pluto and Aquarius and what it means for us. So yeah, that is your look at the astrology this week. Let's look at the astrology for each of the 12 zodiac signs. Just your friendly reminder, you can listen for your rising sign. Some people prefer the rising sign, some people just know their sun sign. It's just 2 points of data that you can also synthesize and get a deeper story if you're able to do that. But see what resonates with you most. So starting with Aries. Aries, so this was a pretty big deal eclipse. You had an eclipse in your sign. How are you doing? And this is, of course, playing off the energies of home and family, roots and foundation, because Mars, your planet, is down in what's called your fourth, the base of your chart. And so this eclipse could, for some Aries, is bringing up a lot of deep emotions, like, am I safe? Am I secure? Do I have enough? Is my family okay? Do I have a family? Maybe themes about childhood, mom and dad and memories, or maybe the desire to create a family, to start a family, or maybe even to make a move, or possibly even a major move for those for whom that is relevant. Taurus season, that said, is a time for you to sort of settle in, settle down, focus on money and income for the next 4 weeks. This is all ramping up of that eclipse period that we're starting to come out of. We have been having eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio, and it has been about money since 2020, the end of 2021. You will have a lunar eclipse next week on May 5th. It's a pretty powerful eclipse, and it does sort of get to these bigger themes about money, income, material stability, material security. assets, property, financial matters, but also deeper emotions, especially with that Mars in Scorpio. So Cancer, really give yourself some TLC, as they say, some tender loving care. This eclipse is really hitting on some deeper emotional points, and maybe for some even some emotional pain points. And this is all to sort of clear some space for something new, solar eclipse in Aries, to come into your life. Taurus, happy birthday, Taurus. I'm so sorry we weren't able to focus more on you last week, but kind of got eclipsed, no pun intended, by the eclipses. But the sun is in your sign. It will be in your sign until the end of May, give or take. And this is your season to come back to a story that has been with you since 2018, 2019. That's Uranus and Taurus. Of course, we've talked about this periodically over the years, but it's a very important point. You've had this evolutionary planet, an evolutionary force with you since 2018, 2019. For my Tauruses that are born towards the beginning of the sign, and these are my April 20, April 21st, all the way, up to about May 1st. And I think, for those who are born May 5th, May 6th, May 7th, now you're you're getting the energies right now. Life probably doesn't look the same. You probably don't look the same. If everything does look the same, this energy is with you. It wants to move. It needs a place to express itself. And of course, I can't tell you what to do. Give it a space to express itself. For some Tauruses, this is a reinvention. For some Tauruses, this is a 180. But whatever ruts you are stuck in, you actually have support in Uranus, the planet of awakenings, the planet of revelations and new consciousness, but the planet that's going to shake you up. I'm not telling you anything that you don't know already. And though this eclipse on May 5th is putting relationships in the spotlight, it's also activating the energies of Uranus and needing to make some sort of bigger change. And maybe that, to go back to the solar eclipse that we had just last week, and what's called your 12th, the space of endings. How do you release something so that something new can come in? Gemini, so your planet is presently retrograde. No big deal. It happens every few months, for every 3 to 4 weeks. And this is just a reminder, the only other signs that don't have retrogrades are Leo and Cancer, is that this is that natural ebb and flow of life. You can't always push forward, Gemini. With Mercury sort of stuck, air quotes, stuck in your 12th for right now, it's not going to leave until I think the middle of June. You've got some soul searching to do. And this is a time when you need to really reflect, slow down, pull back, rest, recuperate, and really wonder what's important, reevaluate choices, listen to your higher self, your higher guidance, get back in touch with your internal GPS, because that's going to give you the material to make some space and let go as you go into, I think it's like the middle of May when Mercury finally gets out of Taurus. That said, pay attention to your dreams, pay attention to your intuition, what is starting to come up for you at this time. And this Mercury retrograde picks up on a bigger theme about spiritual awakenings or awakenings in general that have been happening over the past 3 or 4 and even 5 years. That solar eclipse last week opened up a new chapter in friends and community, and really feeling the push to find your people, find a place in the world, but also getting into these bigger themes about value and worth and stability and security and your value and worth in the world, and especially maybe trying to have a new vision for your life or a vision for the future that you're then going to come and work to bring into reality. Cancer. So what we got? We got an eclipse. That was a big deal eclipse for you, Cancer, and even Cancer risings. I've already seen a couple of Cancer risings where it was a big pivot point. But that eclipse was in something called your 10th career. Over the next 6 months, if not right now, the spotlight is on your professional life. If it's not your professional life, then it's sort of this larger energy or framework that really governs the direction that you take your life in. So this could be a time of new beginnings. You get you get a promotion, you make a job change. God forbid something else, you don't have a job anymore. I'm sure everything's fine, Cancer. Or this is a time when you need to get very focused on what are your goals and ambitions. You have Mars, which is your planet, not your planet, your career planet. It's in your signs in Cancer. That's what I wanted to say. And so you've got to have your hand on the rudders of life, so to speak, right now, because a lot of things are happening. And so if things are changing for you, Cancer, how do you really stand on your 2 feet? How do you take command? How do you lead? And how do you go after what you really want? Taurus season for you, Cancer, is the time when it's about opening up your vision to the world. You sort of reach the pinnacle. Aries season for you is about your professional life, and now it's about looking ahead. What are your hopes and your dreams for the future? What do you need to network? Do you need to network for work? Do you need to spend time with your community? Do you need to build community? There's a sense of needing to find allies and connection at this time. Leo, so this solar eclipse happened in something called your 9th sign. So this is a little bit of a philosophical time for you. It's sort of like, what matters? Like, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? What's your truth? And with the energy of the eclipse, Mars pointing to something called your 12th, you need to look at matters of faith, Leo. And I know faith is a word that's often just immediately put into the same box as religion. But faith comes in a lot of different forms. It's the faith that is everything going to be okay? Is it the faith that your life is going to work out? Yes, of course, there can be certain spiritual and religious connotations with faith, and maybe you're feeling that. But this is a time when you need to figure out what you really believe in. What do you stand for? The other side of these energies, and that's the Mars and the 12th, is that deep inner side of faith. It is not enough to read something in a book and to accept it. It has to be felt. It has to be internalized. You have to sit with it and let it digest. For some Leos, this is a time where there's a sense of exploration. It could be the exploration of the world, but also that deep inner spiritual exploration as well. And for some Leos, it's a need to get quiet, a need to reflect, a need to recuperate, go on retreat, for example. And for some Leos, it's the need to really let go of something. Could be a belief, it could be a way of life, or sort of a vision of something. But that Mars point is really asking you to let go, for example. That said, Leo, Taurus season for you, the sun is now going through your 10th sign of career. So this is your natural point in your personal calendar where your professional life is in the spotlight. Over the next 4 weeks, it could be a time when it really demands that you take more responsibility, you go after what you want in life, you try to build your professional life, for example. But do not forget, Leo, that you've had Uranus in your career sign since 2018, 2019. It is an evolutionary force. It's trying to create change and transformation. It's trying to awaken you to something and to go back and to see what's been the story since 2018, 2019 in your professional life. For some Leos, it is a 180. For other Leos, it could be a breakthrough. Maybe it's another Leo that's got this crazy idea but doesn't know how to make it happen. But Uranus has a habit of making things happen. All of this is in advance of that Scorpio full moon that's going to be happening on May 5th. That is a big one for you, and it's really activating those energies of professional change and transformation, for example. Virgo, so your planet is retrograde. No big deal. It happens every few times a year for 3 to 4 weeks at a time. It's just your reminder that the tide can't always go out. It sometimes has to pull in. And so with Mercury retrograde until I think it's the middle of May or something, this is a time for you to really reflect on what do you believe in? What do you stand for? What do you think is true? Your belief comes in a lot of different forms. There's the belief of how we're acculturated, I believe this because this is how I was raised, and this is the religion I was raised in, and this is sort of how my family taught me to see things. And sometimes we can accept a lot of that just unconsciously. We don't question it. But maybe, especially with Uranus in this sign that's been there since 2018, 2019, it's time to reflect and to question and maybe see things from different perspectives. Maybe you are considering things that you would have never considered before, maybe especially compared to how you were raised, for example. Or for some Virgos, it's a need to really get into these larger questions about conviction. What do you stand for? What do you believe in? What do you think is true? And I would say that just sort of the caution in all this is before you go and the phrase is die on that hill, that proverbial hill that we all want to die on. It's just double check your facts, because sometimes with that retrograde, we're like, oh yeah, this is definitely the way to go. This is definitely what I want to do. But maybe you need to see things again from a different perspective. That said, speaking of Taurus season is the time for you to look outward into the world. Maybe to focus on your education, to take classes. These are more classes that are more specialized, or something that's for a degree, for an example. Or maybe education comes by getting on a plane, going to see other parts of the world, or maybe you're just in a more philosophical mood, Virgo. If you are feeling philosophical, maybe it's because the solar eclipse really touched on some deep emotional points that you're still trying to figure out and digest. And pay attention to what's bubbling up, because this eclipse really dug into, what I like to call the deep self, the hidden self. This is a self that you either only share with somebody that you absolutely trust, or somebody you have an intimate relationship with, or a therapist, or maybe it's part of that undiscovered country that lives inside all of us. And then now you got to figure out, well, is it still true? Does it still hold up? Do I still stand for it? Because maybe that eclipse is starting to shake something up, for example. Libra, so your planet is Venus. It's presently in Gemini. It's about halfway through Gemini. And this is a time when you're sort of looking out in the world. And for some Libras or Libra risings, you've got a trip planned. You're really thinking about something far away, whether you are actually buying those plane tickets to another part of the world or looking to travel and explore. For some Libras, this is a time to really get into, well, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? These sort of deeper philosophical questions that we all have as human beings. That said, maybe you're doing a lot of soul searching right now, Libra. Taurus season for you is the season where it's what I call going into the 8th room. Each sign is a space in your astrology: the 1st room, the 4th room, the 8th room. But in the 8th room, what do we find? We find the deepest parts of ourselves, and sometimes the part of ourselves that we've just shoved into a room and we've closed the door. But this is your season where you have to pull back the layers of self. You have to go into the psyche, and you have to get uncomfortable. Uranus has been with you in this space since 2018, 2019. It's trying to shake you awake and get you to see aspects of yourself that typically you're either disconnected, disassociated, or you've sort of, again, pushed away. How have you changed on a deeper level since 2018, 2019? Maybe you see something in that question, for example. Aries season for you, or rather the Aries solar eclipse that we had last week, was a big, powerful eclipse. It really is the start of a bigger story in relationship. And this is all relationships, not just little r relationship or big R relationships, both are relationships. And again, with those bigger questions about intimacy and vulnerability, how do you open up to people? How do you trust? How do you interact? How do you get your needs met? How are you able to talk about the things that normally are very difficult to talk about? And this could be a period, especially with Mercury retrograde in Taurus, of some brutal honesty, or really having those frank conversations, especially the frank conversations with an intimate partner or somebody who plays an important role in your life. Scorpio. So, you ready, Scorpio? You're going to have a lunar eclipse in your sign on May 5th. If you are born in the, like November 11th or 12th time frame, 13th time frame, this is an eclipse that's going to put a spotlight on you. Hopefully I'm getting those dates right. But that said, this eclipse puts into the spotlight a bigger story that's been with you, if not these eclipses. So we had our first Scorpio eclipse on May 16th, 2022. We had a solar eclipse in Scorpio on October 25th, and maybe this eclipse is like that really decisive end of something. That's what Scorpio does, is decisive end of things. Or maybe we need to get to the Taurus Taurus lunar eclipse that's going to happen on October 28th this year to really see the story come to its full end. That said, you are in the spotlight regardless of when you were born, but of course if you are born in that sort of 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 time frame, you are definitely in the spotlight. That said, maybe you're feeling, life shifting and moving. Maybe there's a sense of expectancy. This is all playing off of the solar eclipse that we had last week. These two things come hand in hand. Both those eclipses are ruled by Mars. You are ruled by Mars, and Mars is in Cancer. Cancer for you is the sign of travel, exploration, seeing the world, and seeing the world in a lot of different ways. It's education, it's higher education. It's really getting a sense of what do you believe in, what do you stand for, and what do you think is true. So there's a philosophical edge to this, or maybe it's just quite literally you're planning some big travel over the coming days, or the coming weeks, or even the coming months. So that said, how do you get out there? How do you get out there in the world? How do you share your point of view? The 9th, which is where Cancer is also a space of viewpoints. And how do you share your story? How do you share your mission? What is your mission, Scorpio? And this eclipse that's going to be on May 5th is a big one because it plays off of Uranus and Taurus, and Uranus has been in your relationship sign since May 2018, March of 2019. And to really see how relationships, all relationships, big R, small r, have changed since 2018 and 2019. That said, what else we got? Yeah, this is a big turning point for you, Scorpio, and I think one that is both a conclusion, but also one that is opening up a new period for you. Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, we've got only probably about a few more weeks of your planet Jupiter being in Aries, and Aries was certainly where Jupiter is right now, is to put a lot of spotlight in a way on you. You sort of got roped in to that solar eclipse on April 20th. Right now it's so much about these larger questions about identity and self and creativity, but also passion. And passion we think is kind of a luxury, but it's a necessity of life. When we don't have that spark, and Sagittarius, you are a fire sign, you need that spark, then it's hard to get motivated, it's hard to create, it's hard to get your life flowing. So in a way, this eclipse is trying to get these energies starting to move and flow again. But with Mars, the ruler of that eclipse in Cancer, Maybe you need to look at the other side of things, self-destructive tendencies, the time that you get in your own way. We're all human beings, of course. So this is that time to really rally and to sort of do that deeper work on yourself, to look at yourself. And this is all in preparation. With the sun, it's in Taurus right now, but we've got so much happening in Taurus with Uranus in Taurus. It's been there since 2018, 2019, and aspects of your day-to-day life, how you exist in your day-to-day life, your relationship with health and wellness has seen some of your biggest transformations over the past few years. Your relationship with your physical body goes hand in hand with your relationship with your emotional body and even the parts of yourself that you can't see. Everything is connected. So when Jupiter gets into the space on May 16th, your planet, it is this year chapter that's going to really focus you on a lot of the bigger changes, the macro changes that you've been making over the past 4 or 5 years. For some Sagittarius, you've made big changes in your health and wellness. You do physical exercise and you weren't doing physical exercise before. You really value your health and wellness and spend time carving out or creating time to take care of yourself. For some Sagittarius, they need to reorganize their day-to-day life, rebuild the system, so to speak. So it's going to be a very interesting check-in when your planet Jupiter gets into that space on May 16th. I will add that Mercury, which is a big player in your astrology, it is your career planet, is your relationship planet. It is currently retrograde in Taurus. Maybe you are really reevaluating these sort of larger questions about value and worth, about your professional life, about relationships, and maybe right on cue, classic Mercury retrograde, an old relationship from the past is popping back up for you to reevaluate or wrap something up, for example. Capricorn. So Capricorn, you're in this new phase of life where Saturn, your planet, is in Pisces. And this is a time for you to really focus on the things that really nourish you on a much deeper level. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It's peace. It's letting go. It's emotion. It's intuitive as well. Maybe you are even feeling more intuitive than usual. With that solar eclipse last week, it was in something called your fourth. It really put the spotlight on home and family over the next 6 months. And maybe a lot of deep emotions are coming up for you right now, Capricorn. Like, am I safe? What's my home? Where do I belong? Who are my people? Maybe you have people, and it's time for like a new big beginning in that department. Somebody's moving in, somebody's moving out. It's about anchoring in, focusing on creating a family or nourishing your family. Mars is in Cancer, your relationship sign, so relationships are heavily factoring into your astrology right now, whether it's big R relationships or small R relationships. That just means the major relationships in our life, often it's an intimate partner, not just intimate partners, but the major relationships of your life, and then also just how do you interact and socialize with people right now. That said, Taurus season for you plays upon a bigger period of change around you. This has actually been coming up since 2018, 2019. It's you, but sort of comes back to this larger question, Capricorn. Who are you? Who are you really? And when you strip away the layers of duty and responsibility and acculturation and sort of the burdens of the past and family and home, what remains? And this has been, whether you realize it or not, this larger framework of time for you to really capture the spirit of who you are. And for some Capricorns, life looks very different. You look very different than who you are, how you expressed who you were 4 or 5 years ago. This is about, for some people, it's a coming out, it's an awakening. That sense of spirit that I spoke to a few moments ago can no longer be contained in this container. It could be of time, of energy, of expectation, of duty, responsibility that no longer fits you. So that said, this is this time of major change for you, Capricorn. These eclipses are playing off of, career and you and relationships and sort of these big four corners of your life. And maybe with Saturn in your third, this is sort of really having to weigh options and making sure that whatever choice you make, it really gets in touch with your heart and your spirit. Aquarius. Aquarius. So, Saturn, your planet, has since moved on to Pisces. It'll be there for another, 2.5 years, 3 years. We got time. So you're just really settling into this new phase of time. And it's about, money, income, material stability, material security, but making sure that these areas of your life really line up with your deeper spiritual values. For example, maybe you're feeling very motivated to create material stability in your life, but Piscean material stability and security isn't just for the money per se. It's about making sure that it connects to something larger, something that actually nourishes you and maybe even others on a larger level. These eclipses for you, they talked about voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn. And for some Aquarius, this is a time of powerful choices, powerful ways of using your mind, coming back and refocusing on education, new writing projects, or new public speaking projects. With Mars, the ruler of this eclipse, in your sixth sign of health and wellness, maybe there are some greater questions about your health and your wellness, how you take care of your body, needing to go get some things checked out, needing to kind of get a second opinion, for example, or needing to make new choices about how you take care of your physical life, for example. Aquarius for you, Taurus, is a major sign in your astrology. It really forms the base of your astrology. And so this is a time where you are getting back to a bigger phase of awakening and transformation that's been with you since 2018 and 2019. For some Tauruses, this, especially as you get into this lunar eclipse next week, it focuses on career for you, for example. It is to try to find the balance between your home life, but also your duties and responsibilities in the world. Or for other Aquariuses, this could be a change in the household, a move, a preparation for a move. But it's a big time for you, Aquarius. Finally, Pisces. Pisces. So this eclipse, it talked about money, income, material stability, material security. How are you seeing that play out? Your planet is also in Aries, the same sign as the eclipse, and Jupiter was a bit close to that eclipse degree, so maybe you're kind of wrapped up and you're seeing some bigger pivot points in your life right now. If it's not literally money and material stability, that it could be these larger questions about value and worth. For example, like, what are you worth? What is your time and your effort worth? What's really important in your life? That said, is that with that sun in Taurus, which is what's called your third sign, it picks up on a larger theme about voice and communication that's been with you over the past few years. For some Pisces, this has been a time to really find your voice, whether it's literally using your voice, speaking up, speaking out, or getting into these deeper themes about, voice. Like, how do you take the spirit of who you are and put it into your words so that you transmit yourself through what you have to say? Mercury, which is a big player in your astrology, is presently retrograde. No big deal, but it is the planet that talks about home and family. It talks about relationships, and maybe you're having to do a lot of reevaluation about a relationship, about a connection, about something about home and family, about moving forward. And so this is a time when you're really weighing your options, but making sure that whatever you choose is really true to you. So that is your look at the astrology of April 24th through 30th, 2023. 3. Yeah, so eclipse season, big deal. You can still get my eclipse webinar. It opens us up to a 6-month chapter of time. So this is not just a one and done eclipse. This is something that's really showing us a new container, a time that we're going to be working with over the next 6 months. And then you've got that eclipse next week. We got stuff to talk about. Thank you for joining me live, as always, or even if you watch on the replay. Again, my name is Katie Sweetman. You can follow me online at empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Spotify, and I will see you all next week. Take care and be well. Bye-bye.